What up, gamers? I'm Aaron, and by now, you've probably noticed a lot of gamers who were down to key all night long in Shadowlands now have to be begged just to log in for their vault keys. And if you ask them why, they'll give you all kinds of excuses. They'll tell you that loot is bad, depletion sucks, and there's not enough incentive. And while that might seem reasonable, quite frankly, it's all bullshit. Because it all ignores one simple fact, and that's that us Mythic Plusers are freaks. We will put up with any abuse to play the game mode we love. So the real reason has to be something much deeper, and it's actually quite simple. You see, when you do a dungeon, you want to play your class. But over the last 2 years, Mythic Plus has become less about how well you play your class, and more about how well your group manages 600 different crowd control abilities to prevent any one pack from one-shotting you so hard you wake back up in Warlords of Draenor. And when you hear that, you might think, Aaron, this isn't too relevant to me, because maybe you don't play at a level where crowd control chains are expected, or maybe you even play at a level where your teammates don't know what interrupts are. But this just means that this is actually way worse for you, because those spells just go off instead. They make your dungeon 50 times harder in 50 different ways. And for the people where that's not the case, it's not fun gameplay either. It sucks for everyone. I mean, think about your poor tank. He just wants to survive, and he hasn't unclenched his asshole since the first pull started. But now, he's gotta spend half his brain power telling me to blast wave. And you and I, we just want to crank damage. But now, this entitled protection warrior is telling us we have to spend our beautiful global cooldowns on helping our team. And as for the healer, well, I mean, does anyone really care? So that's where the good news from Midnight starts rolling in. Because you've probably noticed that with pre-patch, half of your crowd control has disappeared overnight. And you're not gonna have to worry about missing it too much, because now, life is easy. Just like it was for your rep paladin, who never used crowd control anyways. But this does leave us with the big question, which is, how did we get here? From a world where one outlaw rogue could lock down an entire dungeon, to a place where if one teammate misses one stun, your entire group explodes. Well, like most things you dislike, it all started in Shadowlands. This expansion is most commonly remembered for having a 0.1 patch that was worse than getting waterboarded by the CIA. But the Mythic Plus was actually pretty damn good. At the time, most classes had 1 to 2 stops, and most packs had 2 to 3 mechanics. It wasn't uncommon for a single skilled outlaw rogue to be able to handle 85% of the crowd control for an entire group. But this all changed with Dragonflight, when the new talents meant that classes went from having 1 to 2 stops to 3 to 6, and every single mob in Dragonflight had 10 times the mechanics of its Shadowlands counterpart. It wasn't uncommon for you to need to stun upwards of 10 times in a single pull through Dragonflight. We didn't cross the crowd control event horizon until the release of the War Within, when Blizzard changed every dungeon mob to simply recast its ability if it was stopped by a stun or knockback. This meant that whenever you stopped an ability, you'd have to just stop it again 3 seconds later. When a mob in the War Within decided it was time to fuck you up, there was nothing you could do to stop it. You could only delay it through an infinite crowd control chain and hope that it died before you do. And when you think back on the War Within Season 1, remember, every mob just threw infinite bullshit at you. There were single mobs in Grim Batol throwing out more curses than a 40-man Molten Core raid boss, and there were packs in City of Threads as small as 3 mobs that required professional interrupt shot calling, or you would be dead on the floor faster than you could type noob team GG. So this is definitely the most notable change in Midnight Mythic Plus, because now you'll find yourself in places like Skyreach fighting upwards of 10 mobs with as few as 2 interrupts. And I'm not saying you'll never have to crowd control a mob again. That would be fucking stupid. But I am saying that now you can focus more on playing your class rather than simply assuming you have to go into every pull and not let it cast for a single second. And this is why I think that even if Midnight fucks up, in all the ways you're afraid it will, this one change adds so much enjoyment to this game mode that it's pretty much the biggest upgrade it could possibly receive. Now there are some issues. I'll come back to those in a few minutes, but first, what are the actual effects of this change? What does it mean for you? Well, firstly, while Mythic Plus is going to let you play your class, how well you play it is going to be at the forefront of your experience. Because if a single interrupt going off doesn't completely brick your key, you will rise up to a level in which you are challenged in other ways. This is going to be, can you do enough DPS to time the key? Can you survive pulling big enough to make it through the whole route? And this is the one that's going to be the limiter for a lot of groups. Can your healer keep you alive through the entire dungeon? Because while there aren't as many interrupts or stops required, these packs still do a sometimes absurd amount of damage, and healers will need to heal. So, while I can understand that this new paradigm can be intimidating for a lot of people, it comes with some great news for all of you teamless losers. Because this means that Mythic Plus is likely going to be way easier to pug, as 5 players who know their class and understand their role in the dungeon can go so much further now that they don't have to coordinate to the same level. And maybe you're not a teamless loser, okay? That was rude of me to assume. But every time you log in to play, your friend Mike has to go to his dumbass job when he should be playing WoW with you. Well, don't sweat it, because now it's never been easier to just grab a 6th friend or a complete random from LFG and go play without him. This is great news for everyone except Mike. And when that miracle overlap comes and you can finally play with your friends, making progress together should be considerably easier, because now most things can be handled by pre-assigned responsibility. You can simply say, when we get to this pull, Mike will kick this mob. And that is so much easier than requiring someone to step up and be a flawless, on-the-spot shot caller. So with your group moving up to the level they belong faster, really the biggest thing you're going to have to worry about is one of your friends getting fraud checked, where you realize maybe they don't do enough damage, maybe they die too easily, or maybe they can't do enough healing. And when this happens, before you start verbally assaulting each other, make sure you just look up a VOD of a better group doing the same key. You'll be surprised how much easier it gets. Oh, and one more quick thing. All of the dungeons in this season have much shorter timers, clocking in at around 30 minutes. So you can get in and out of dungeons a lot quicker, and you're not going to have to worry about drawing a Halls of Valor that's going to keep you in one key all day long. But anyways, I don't want to say that Season 1 of Midnight is going to be all sunshine and rainbows, but it might not surprise you to hear that all of the issues don't come from the dungeons themselves, but rather the game-wide changes that Midnight has made. You remember 2 seconds ago when I said that Mythic Plus was going to be more pug-friendly? Well, this is the part where I walk that back, because while the stage is set for pug success, the UI changes in Midnight means that it can be a lot harder to tell what is going on, or what just killed you. It's not as easy as it was in the War Within, where 2/3 of the time it was either a bolt went off or I stood in something I shouldn't have. If you wear cloth armor, you're gonna die to throw spear in Mysara Caverns. But unless you've got the new, way more rudimentary targeted spells add-on, you are gonna have a really hard time telling that this is about to happen to you, and dealing with it proactively. Similarly, every caster you know, healers included, are going to interrupt themselves on the Mammoth 4 to 5 times before getting it through their thick skull that it's something they need to pay attention to. So yeah, it's gonna be pug friendly eventually, but the removal of some key weak auras, as well as quality of life from add-ons, means that for the first few weeks, most groups you join are gonna have to learn every single lesson the hard way. So if you want to get that IO quick, and not get stuck in the trenches for all time, I would recommend trying to play with the same people as much as possible. That way you don't have to watch every lesson get learned over and over and over again. Oh yeah, and real quick, I've been meaning to ask you, did you have a Valentine this year? I did, but I've got room for tons of them, almost 1,300 to be exact, and I'd love for you to be mine too. And if you don't have a special someone in your life, I'd like to remind you that there is nothing, not a single thing in this world, that is better for your romantic life than dominating the next Mythic Plus season. And that's exactly what you'll be doing as a Razzun subscriber. So, maybe give that some thought before clicking off this video. But anyways, how are these changes going to impact the meta? Because I'm sure there's a lot of coping warrior players who think that now that they don't need 18 stuns, it's finally their time to shine. Well, unfortunately, if you don't have to worry about a specific piece of utility, it's pretty likely that the meta will just gravitate towards the classes who can survive the best and do the most damage. However, I do think it will be a lot easier to get people to take a chance on your off-meta class in Midnight. And here's why. When there's a god comp in any given meta, people get way too comfortable only playing the strategies that are good for the god comp. If you play an off-meta class, you are very familiar with the feeling of queuing up to a key and watching the entire 5-minute timer tick down to 0. You probably think they're not inviting you because they don't have any faith in your class. But what's happening on the other end is that this group has been waiting for the class they want for 15 minutes. They see you in the queue, and to them they're saying, I'm sure this Shadow Priest does enough damage, but I don't want to learn how to do this key without Solar Beam. Or in the case of a tank, I don't want to learn how to do this key without Sigil of Chains, or Sigil of Silence. It's not so much that they don't have faith in your class to be good enough, as much as they don't have faith in the group completing the key without the God Comp's approved strategy. So I think that if people aren't so reliant on a single piece of utility, it will be way easier to get people to give you a shot as an off-meta class in Midnight. Unless, of course, your class is tuned so badly that you shouldn't even bother applying, in which case, you probably should have re-rolled a couple weeks ago. But anyways, next, I'd like to talk about how you're probably going to be a lot more reliant on your team in Midnight. And this is entirely due to the ability Prune. Because like I said earlier, these packs do a lot of damage, and your healer needs to heal, but you probably have a lot less defensives than you did a month ago. Unless you play Hunter, in which case, congratulations, you have gaslit Blizzard into making you indestructible. But for everyone else, you are going to be getting hit a lot more often than you can defend yourself from a hit. Or maybe you got targeted by a powerful trash mob, but you only have one stun and you used it 15 seconds ago. So unless your pug teammate is looking out for you and they care more about you than any pug has ever cared about anything, you're just gonna die. These changes actually feel really good when you're in a coordinated group that makes you feel safe and loved and cared for. But when you're out there in the pug scene and you end up with a healer who's busy eating paste and DPS teammates who are oblivious to everything around them, you're really gonna miss all of those spells that you've lost. But beyond all of those minor or major frustrations, I don't want to downplay some of the other issues that Mythic Plus has faced, okay? The rewards are bad, and I wish they were better. And whether you love or hate Resilient keys, I think every one of us can agree that depletion is not in a perfect state. And similarly with incentive, I wish there was more reason for people to push keys, especially now that they don't have to worry about learning how to lock down every pack in the entire game. But, much like when we traded our terrible affixes for the much less offensive Xal'atath affixes, I think this one change buys our game mode so much more time to be fun while we worry about the other shit later. Midnight is far from a perfect expansion. You know this better than anyone now that you've spent 18 hours fucking with your pre-patch UI. But I think it's safe to say that Mythic Plus is one thing you can start to get excited about. If you had even the tiniest bit of fun in the war within Mythic Plus, you will easily multiply that in Midnight. So, whether you're getting into the game mode for the first time, or looking to step up your game in Midnight, I'll have something for you, and I'll be back in your subscription feed faster than you can possibly imagine. But until then, I'm Aaron, and thanks so much for your time. Peace. My fucking tank just left. I'm gonna kill this motherfucker.